Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. Hope you're all very well this evening. So we're going to cover a few things tonight. Are Brexiteers Nazis? We're going to cover a bit about also Robert Jenrick pretending to be Batman or Bruce Wayne. I'm not sure which it is. Bernie Sanders is calling for the end of billionaires. And I'm going to touch on a hero who appeared on on Question Time on yesterday. So I hope you're all very well. Hope you had a wonderful week. Let me just say hello to a few people in chat. So we have, I see CGM is there, Bill is there, Killer moderating, Pineapple is back, Frederick is here, Asperger's Europe, great to see you once again. I see User X9, who is Mandy. Great to see you on, Mandy. Captain Jack is here. Reagan Elite, great to have you on. Hope you're well. Bill Silver, Cavan Lad, Chatty Rat, Nicole. Who else? MZ, great to see you. Moi Moi, great to have you on. Peter is here. My Bigger Tree, great to have you on. Sam, Manuel, great to see you as well. Alistair, great to have you on. Suzanne is here. Wide is on as well. Did I miss anyone? Hopefully didn't. Suzanne, Asperger's, Frederick, I said hello. Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you too. Chatty Rat is on as well. And so many more. Hope you're all very well. Hope you had a wonderful week. So let's jump into the first story. This is quite funny. Thanks to Reagan Elite for sending me this just before the live stream. Oh my goodness. Do you remember on Saturday, I believe it was, on Saturday there was the Great British National Strike. Not many people it was meant to be 500,000 people turned up, but I think it was like about 50, so something like that. Anyway, Turn Left Media managed to interview some of them, which was, how can I say, interesting. Just before we continue, this is something we're going to hear a lot about. Let me bring up the image. Oh, where is it? No, it's back a bit. There, remigration. So this idea of sending people back. It's not like deportation. I believe it's actually taking people who are maybe second generation or first generation migrants, sending them back. Not just about deporting people. So it's people who are in Britain legally, who are, I believe, citizens. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it's citizens can be sent back to another country. So there's this whole thing of, and of course, let's go back to the image. Of course, the people who are pushing this are the master race. Anyway.
My name's Tom, just here because I don't think it's right what the government's doing to our country. They're ruining it. They sell us down the river. And all these people, the ones in Birmingham as well, we all make a stand. And I believe one more voice will make a difference.
My message for the government right now would be repent and turn to Jesus.
Repent and return to Jesus. This is the message to Keir Starmer. I hope Keir Starmer's listening. Repent. Repent for what? Is it the two-child benefit cap removal? Maintaining the two-child benefit cap, or is it the winter fuel allowance? Is that it? I love how these people are like, you need to be like Jesus. Do these people know? Well, I'll go back to the lady. Do they know that Jesus was, I don't know, off the idea that you should be welcoming to foreigners? You should love your neighbor like yourself. That Jesus, what else did Jesus say? Jesus said, turn the other cheek. 500,000, half a coach load of crackheads. Thanks so much, moi moi. Moi, sorry, moi, not moi moi. What did I say before? Moi moi. Oh my goodness. We're off to a good start, aren't we? Jesus said also, for example, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. Which, what does that mean for Nigel Farage and Donald Trump? welcome the foreigner into your home. What does that say for Nigel Farage and Donald Trump? Anyway, we have a super chat from Alistair. Thank you so much, Alistair. All the village idiots from all around England turned up, Max. All the towns breathed a sigh of relief. The average IQ in most towns increased by about 5 points when these people all descended on London, I think it was.
We, the British people, have had enough. People claim this is a Christian country, but yet the Christian values have been pushed aside. The government have pushed it aside, and what this country...
But if you're saying like the Christian values of looking after the poor have been pushed aside, yes, I agree with that, but somehow I don't think he's talking about that. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. This is what happens when bestiality is stopped. You guys are terrible. But thanks for the chat, for the super chat. They would deport Jesus, yes, because Jesus would not be somebody who would be welcome within Reform UK. Or this, I think this is actually even more extreme than Reform. Like Farage is probably going to these guys, hey, pump the brakes, guys. You're going a bit too far even for me.
Needs now is a great revival, a great belief in God, a great belief in Jesus.
We're sick of the woke agenda in schools, of all this gender nonsense. And
I love when they start talking about woke. I would love for somebody to ask them, can you define woke? Because then they would be stumped. They wouldn't know what to say. Because they're like, well, woke is bad stuff. I haven't been told what woke means by Nigel Farage yet. So as soon as Nigel tells us what woke means, then we'll say why we're against it. But at the moment, we're just against it because, well, we don't like it. We don't know what it means, but we don't like it. My dad doesn't like eating certain food, even though he's never tried it. So this is maybe a bit like the anti-woke people. They don't know what woke means, but they know they don't like it.
we need to start looking after our children and our country for their future.
Have you got grant?
And of course, these are the same people who voted for Brexit to make their children worse off, to take opportunities away from their children.
Children or children that are in schools at the moment?
4 grandchildren aged from 6 to 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. And what is it they've been taught in schools that you disagree with then? What is it that's really sort of getting you back up about it?
All this nonsense about all this gender, that you can be any gender that you want, that you can be a fur animal. It's just stupidity.
What's happening at the moment is not a good place for children at all.
Is there something sort of specific that's sort of really important to you at the moment, like a specific campaign or a specific policy that you're not happy with?
Well, to me, my policy, what I don't like is about all the illegal immigrants coming in. And at the end of the day, there's people who are like these ex-army people who are on the streets. They've got nowhere to live.
So we're back to we need to look after our own. Until somebody suggests, let's look after our own, and they're like, no, these people are lazy layabouts. They're sponging off the state. They should be kicked off benefits and into jobs that even if they can't do these jobs, or even if these jobs don't pay. So this is the problem with the far right. It's as soon as you start talking about, you raise any problem, housing, welfare, anything like that, they say, well, we should be looking after our own. But then as soon as you mention, well, let's start looking after our own, they're like, no, these people are lazy. They need to be punished. It's like, they don't care about our own. It's just, I'm angry with one group of people now, and tomorrow I'll be angry with a different group. So Larry, thank you so much for that super chat. These are all the people who failed the audition to be the local village idiot. The tooth fairy is their natural enemy. Evening, Max. Thanks so much, Larry. Look, I'm not going to comment on people's appearance, okay? I'm going to leave it for you guys to do that, because it wouldn't be right for me to do that. But there is a tendency to be missing a few teeth for some reason. I'm not sure. Is it people get into fights so they just can't be bothered to brush their teeth, or what? I've had a few extractions, okay? So I'm not someone to I'm not casting any stones here.
And, they're giving everything to them, and I don't think it's fair.
There's no military no more. When I was in the army, there was 250,000 of us. Now there's 80,000.
Under the Conservatives, the size of the military decreased under the Conservative Party, under Conservative governments. But if there was a choice between voting for Labour and the Tories, you'd vote Tory. Brad, thanks so much for that. This lot just escaped a failed bio-lab experiment. Thanks, Brad. Certainly looks like that, doesn't it?
We have no defence against the rest of the world. It's completely shocking. It's about time that we sorted something out.
He got voted into power in Starmer, and so far everything he's done everything he promised is not happening. The waiting lists aren't coming down in the hospitals.
They are actually. Like I'm no fan, as you guys know, I'm no huge fan of Keir Starmer, but credit where it's due, and I've said this before. The worker rights protections that the Labour government have put forward, they're benefiting people. When it comes to net zero, they should be investing more, but net zero, of course, will reduce people's energy bills. They should be going faster. They should be doing more. And then when it comes to the NHS waiting list has come down. Now, there may be devil in the detail there, but the raw figures, looking at the raw figures, the numbers have come down. So, but this person obviously is not following the news.
Like I said, the people on the boats, they're still being let.
Okay, so it's not about the NHS. It's not about housing. It's the people on the boats. Yet again, people using our flag in the in the wrong way. Yes, well said, Ivan. Either they have it upside down or back to front, or they're using it as a fascist symbol. There needs to be more. Thank you so much for that super chat. They failed the audition for Chunk. You guys are terrible. But when it comes to the flag needs to be taken back. People need to take back ownership, take back control of the flag, because it's not right that the English flag, the flag of St. George, is used by the far right, or that the Union Jack, or the Union flag, I should say, is used by the far right. It should be taken. It's not their flag. It belongs to the United Kingdom, the people of the United Kingdom. Like, for Wales, Scotland, and to a certain extent Northern Ireland, they have their own flags. But when it comes to the English, they have their flag, and it should be taken back from the far right. Why should Farage and the far right be able to use that as their banner? They shouldn't. Freckapony, thanks so much for that super chat. How dare you? These people are the cream of the crop. Don't you know? Sadly, it was a bad harvest. Oh my goodness. There we go. I see the Scots have posted. It's not my flag. No, the flag of, it's more the flag of the English maybe than the Scots.
Come in the country, France aren't doing anything about it. We've seen it on TV, we've seen it on the news. They're just watching them sail across. We're paying money to France. What for?
It's not just about racism, as these lunatics are saying to my right. They're on about immigrants welcome. We're saying immigrants are welcome, certainly in a controlled environment.
Yeah, in a controlled environment.
Of course they're welcome, absolutely.
But what do you mean controlled environment? Like, I keep saying, if there are no jobs available, people won't come. We're talking, but they're not talking about immigrants, and they're not talking about jobs. They're talking about asylum seekers. And this is where it's so important that this is clarified. Unfortunately, the media will not clarify this. They'll not explain to the public. And unfortunately, when Farage is on TV and others like Farage, they'll just be able to say, regurgitate the thing of, oh, illegal migrants, or people breaking into the country, or people coming here illegally. It's tiring.
Every time. But it's not just about that. He's sold us out. He's sold us out to Europe. He's sold out the fishermen. He's sold out the farmers.
Okay, sold out. So how has Keir Starmer sold out the farmers or sold out the fishermen? Nigel Farage told them if they voted to leave the European Union, everything would be better off. And then as soon as that happened, he dodged the fishing communities like the plague.
He sold out the pensioners. What next? We've just given away the Chagos Islands, which is an absolute joke.
Which most people wouldn't be able to find on a frigging map.
Just the country is a shambles. We want a general election now.
It's like when it came to the Scottish independence referendum, the Scots said, like, you know, the situation has changed. We want another referendum, and the right, the far right in particular, and the Tories were like, no, you had your referendum. You're not allowed to have another one. And then, of course, when Brexit became a disaster, when it became clear it was a disaster for all to see, and there was a chance of a second referendum. No, we don't want another referendum. That would be undermining democracy, even though they claimed that a referendum was democracy. Surely more democracy is a good thing. But no, we don't want that. Now they want another general election after, less than a year Starmer got into government. Like, once again, I'm not Starmer's biggest fan, but elections don't work like that. You don't say, okay, we voted for someone, we don't like this person, we want another election straight away. No, it doesn't really work like that. The media is to blame for this brainwashing. Well said, Frederick. Yes. And my bugbear is with the media. The media's job is to hold politicians to account, to inform the public, to challenge lies, to fact check, but they've completely abandoned their job and I think it comes down to social media, and it comes down to likes and clicks. They see people like Farage and Boris Johnson are great for them. It's great for the media. Get Boris Johnson on. He talks absolute tripe, and we get our clicks and likes. Farage, even better. And we don't want to challenge him too much, because then he won't come back. You know, there's a reason why Farage is challenged more at a local level, if he ever appears on local level, but more on the international level, because those journalists don't have to pander to him, because they say, well, here's my chance to interview Nigel Farage. I'm going to grill him. I'm probably never going to see him again. He's not going to come on my network, or he's definitely not going to be interviewed by me again. So now I have an opportunity. But if you're Laura Kuenssberg, or if you're somebody on LBC, you're not going to grill Farage, with the exception of maybe James O'Brien, but the others, they're not going to grill Nigel Farage because they want him back. Farage is afraid of sunlight. He's afraid of bleach. A bit like Donald Trump. But he's afraid of being exposed because the whole thing would collapse. You know, a few good questions challenging Farage and he'd fall apart. And then the public, I'm not talking about the cult, but the public would say, wait a minute, this guy isn't as clever as he makes out, or he doesn't seem as on the ball as we thought.
Chagos Islands is a very, very dirty deal, because Keir Starmer, without consulting the Chagosian people who are...
Okay, but why is it Keir Starmer? Why is Keir Starmer the problem here? It was the Tories that started these negotiations. Like the Starmer, when he negotiated with I don't even remember the name. What was it? Mauritius. When he negotiated with Mauritius, it was like at the end of the negotiations. Like, who was responsible for the negotiations in the first place? It was the Conservatives. So I'm sorry, you don't get to. Once again, I'm not Starmer's biggest fan, but you don't get to blame Starmer for this.
The owner of Chagos, he just make deals to suit him and his friends, not United Kingdom, not the Chagosians.
And what would you like to see the government do to remedy this?
To make a U-turn and scrap that deal and put in the bin right now. Like I said,
and then what happens? Like, I don't know, but like, what happens to Diego Garcia then? Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Have I died and woken up in Friends done by Farage? It's a bit like that, isn't it? Thanks, Gareth. Peter as well. Thank you so much, Peter. Talking of clicks, give this video a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. Very kind of you. Yes, do smash the like button, guys.
I said earlier, no retreat, no surrender. Chagosian people is a fighter. We lost our island in the 60s and 70s. With those people right now, with the descendant, that will not happen again.
We have our elderly right now. I speak with a lot of elderly on a daily basis when I'm going out. They're having to choose between a hot meal and heating in the colder months. They've paid into this country. You know, they're being crippled. The cutbacks after cutbacks of the most vulnerable in society, but yet the tax for the riches, they don't pay much. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer.
Well said. Well said. This guy is right. The rich are getting richer. There's a massive amount of wealth inequality. So what needs to happen is, of course, there need to be taxes on the rich.
They're not targeting the wealth of the country. They're saving money from the most vulnerable in this country, and it's breaking us.
Did you vote Labour in July last year?
Yes, I did. Yes, and I'm ashamed to say it. Yes, I did.
And who would get your vote tomorrow if we had another general election?
Reform. Definitely reform.
Okay, I don't believe for a second that this woman voted for Labour. I'm quite sceptical of people who said, I voted for Labour and now I'm going to switch to Reform. It's more, now I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's more likely somebody who voted Tory is switching to Reform. Or somebody who's voted for Labour and now, because why did you vote, if you always voted for Labour, why would you switch to the opposite of that? Because Labour is supposed to represent the working class, okay? Now, obviously they're not doing a very good job of that at the moment, maybe to put it mildly, but they're not doing a very good job of looking after. So if you're concerned about the working class, it would make more sense for you to switch to the Greens, or even the Liberal Democrats. Maybe not the Liberal Democrats, the Greens. So why would you go to Reform? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I just think it's highly unlikely.
Same here.
Same, yeah.
Same here. I voted Reform in the councils.
Yeah.
But if it's me, I'd be voting for UKIP. If it was me, because I think UKIP have got the better words to say, if you know what I mean.
I'm not sure whether Nigel...
UKIP. Does UKIP even exist anymore?
To say, if you know what I mean.
I'm not sure whether Nigel Farage is the man, but Reform is the way forward.
And what is it they're offering that makes you feel confident in them rather than sort of the other parties?
Because they promised to get sharks that'll eat the rubber dinghies.
I'm sorry? No, I need to hear that again.
Parties.
Because they promised to get sharks that'll eat the rubber dinghies.
They promised to get sharks out for the rubber dinghies. What, Reform are going to send sharks out? Okay. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat. Can you please have respect for the different constituent countries in the UK and the people? I won't stand for disrespect. Can we please have respect for the different constituent countries in the yes, like England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. Reform, for example, Reform have no respect for Scotland. They have no respect for Wales. When it came to Scotland, they said, no, we're against another referendum. Like, one thing is to be saying, look, we're not in support of independence. But to say, no, we would not allow another referendum means we don't give a shit about the people of Scotland. When it comes to Wales, Farage hasn't even bothered to put forward someone to represent Wales. There isn't a Welsh leader of Reform. But it's of course, the Welsh leader of Reform is Farage, and Farage doesn't. But we've seen already so far with some of the councillors as well. The councillors haven't even bothered to turn up to council meetings. Crafty, what's his name, spends more time on TV than he does in the council meetings.
People say, oh, you're a racist, you're voting for Reform, but yet one of his biggest funders is an Asian Muslim.
What do you think? What do you think?
I thought this guy was meant to be good. I take it back. I have been conned. I was actually singing your praise a moment ago, and now you're saying I'm going to vote for Reform or Reform is okay because Nigel Farage has a black friend. Okay.
Jesus would think about Reform UK and some of the rhetoric they use.
Well, I think he would say a lot of them need to repent and come to him and have faith in him and trust on him and his principles. Same for any government, any.
Oh my goodness. So that's his get out of jail card. Jesus would demand that the members of Reform repent. Repent for what? For breaking the commandments or what?
Any man, woman or child, whoever we are. The minute the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, that all things shall be added unto you. You know, we need Jesus, and our government needs godly guidance.
The streets are not safe.
No, the streets aren't safe.
No.
We hear about it all the time, about people, especially girls, getting, into trouble. Well, not into trouble, but being attacked by these so-called people. They don't have a clue where they are. They don't have a clue where they're dispersing to.
Look, are there other issues with grooming gangs? Yes, there are. But most abuse is from within the community, in their own community, like within everyone's community. People are more likely to be abused by a family member than a foreigner. So let's get this into perspective. Okay, once again, what's happening with the grooming gangs needs to be condemned. These people need to be arrested. Anyone who's been covering it up needs to be arrested and put in prison. Be it the police, be it people within social services, be it whatever. These people need to be arrested and they need to be put in prison. And measures need to be put in place not to allow this to happen again. But when it comes to abuse, it happens more often in families than with foreigners. But it's easy for Farage and others to point the finger and say, oh, the problem is Pakistanis or whatever. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat once again. The people in the window have more gammon than my local pig farm. Thanks for that. There's certainly a lot of gammon here, yes. But for me, gammon is a state of mind, not so much a physical trait.
The ones that they do, for some reason, they get a priority over all the people that have been born and bred here. Why?
Why? Yeah.
Why?
Why are they getting accommodation? Why are of course she's talking about asylum seekers. Why do asylum seekers get free accommodation, free phones, free transportation in some cases? Why do they get all these free things? Because they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to take up employment. They're forbidden. This is a government policy. Asylum seekers are not allowed to work. That's it. I'm sorry to break it to you like this. You can complain about what they have is for free, but if you're not allowed to work, then you have to have free accommodation. If they were allowed to work, then perhaps they would be able to rent a house or buy a house or something like that. But they're forbidden. But are you complaining about that? No.
Children need to be educated to learn to read, to write, to do maths, to learn kindness, to just
kindness. Okay. Did you learn any kindness?
And learn about British culture.
Yeah, learn history, our British history. That's just being phased out.
There's no.
What? I love this argument. I love this argument where people's British culture has been phased out. Can someone give an example of that? Are children not being taught about British history? I presume they are. Can someone come up with an example of how British culture has been removed? British culture has not been taught. Or not culture, their history is not being taught. They don't have any examples. Because they get all their information from Nigel Farage, or they get it from GB News, or they get it from Facebook. Which is a major problem.
Anything about history no more. It's all gone. And we're supposed to inherit everyone else's culture, but not our own.
What does British culture mean to you?
Oh my goodness. This should be good.
Well, being an ex-serviceman, and my father was an ex-serviceman, it means a lot. It means the world.
Well, what does British culture mean to you? It means a lot. Can you give us an example? Many things. How many? A lot. Okay. So, we're off to, we're almost at the end. Don't worry, guys. We're almost at the end.
I think like the government, like taking away the winter fuel payments, and then now he's give it all back, and he thinks everyone's just going to clap and say it's Starmer fantastic. Well, no, he's not. No, he's not. We need rid of him, and this country needs Jesus.
Which constituency is Jesus going to run in? It's like, we need Jesus. We need to get rid of Starmer and replace him with Jesus. So Jesus is going to run the country. I'd love to know what Jesus's policies are on, I don't know, net zero or on Europe. Jesus for Prime Minister. And what will his cabinet look like? So Peter will be probably finance. Judas will be what? Foreign policy. He'd be a foreign minister. I don't remember the names of the other apostles. Isn't Jesus an immigrant? Yes. These people love Jesus so much, but then as soon as they find out he's an immigrant, they're like, deport the guy. Jesus' policies on Palestine. They might be a bit difficult to swallow for some of them. Although if Jesus came back and he was like looking at Palestine, well, he'd be like, what the fuck happened here? I was out for like 5 minutes and I come back and the whole place has gone to shit. The world has gone to shit in the sense, not so much Palestine. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Actually, it's been English history was taught in school for me. When I was at school, I knew more about Russian revolutionaries than Scottish history, Max. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a national curriculum, and of course, the national curriculum is decided by the Department of Education, which is, of course, in Westminster. So, thanks, Alistair. Thanks, Peter. Can Jesus run in Clacton? Well, I think there'd be more likelihood of... there's probably been more appearances of Jesus in Clacton than of Nigel frigging Farage. Oh, my goodness. At least Jesus appears on toast. Has Farage ever appeared on toast in Clacton? Probably not.
We have to keep on fighting for our country, keep on doing these, and eventually it'll hurt, because the taller they come, I mean, the louder we'll shout.
Sorry, I didn't understand, but we'll continue.
It's been problematic because you Stand Up to Racism were quite outnumbered, but they were looking to us to start the protest thinking we were on their side, and unfortunately were shocked when we said we were Stand Up to Racism.
What about, and well done to these guys for turning up to be part of the counter protest, but they should turn up with flags. They should turn up with the Union flag. They should turn up with the flag of St. George. They should do that. They should take it back. This would really piss off the racists to be like, hey, you're anti-racist. You're not supposed to have that flag. And this is what needs to happen. Take the flag back from the racists and the bigots. They don't deserve it. That's what needs to happen. Show some respect, Max. That was the brain of Britain.
Eventually, we kind of, by having a proper dialogue, not just shouting at each other, we've managed to be a lot more together, because we don't like winter fuel payments being cut, we don't like child benefits being cut, we don't like disability benefits being cut, and people were chanting all sorts of things about Keir Starmer. I'm sure I can't say that on camera.
Keir Starmer's the one. Keir Starmer's the one.
So there's been a bit of unity there when it comes to Keir Starmer. But as I said, they need to take the flag back, but they also need... Talk to these people and say to them, look, okay, you don't like the winter fuel allowance, you don't like the child benefit cap, then there is a party, apart from Farage. Farage doesn't care about you. Farage doesn't care about the working class. He doesn't care about the poor. There is another party. The Green Party is somebody who is a party that would actually fight for you. The trade unions, join a trade union. If you're part of a trade union, your rights will be protected, or at least you'll be in a stronger position. Don't listen to Farage. Farage doesn't want you to join a trade union. Farage doesn't want to protect your rights. Farage wants to throw them away. And especially when it comes to the European Convention on Human Rights, the same thing. Peter, thank you so much for that super chat. Jesus can walk on water to Dover. He doesn't need a boat. That would really upset the gammon, I think. Culture, women going grey-haired, no gammon haired. Thanks, Gareth. Yes. Is there any pushback in this video? Not in this clip, no. Unfortunately, I didn't see any pushback. But I think there was a bit of dialogue. So the anti-racist protesters, the counter protest, said, "Look, we spoke to these people. Look, I think when there's a camera put in front of people, they're a bit more aggressive. But when they actually have to confront somebody in person, they're more likely to be a bit more." Quiet, maybe a bit quieter. Thanks, Ivan. So no, unfortunately, I don't think there was anything in this. There was nothing in this clip. Maybe in another video you might find online, there might be a bit of pushback. But I think the idea behind all of this was, look, we disagree politically, but we can agree on certain things, especially that Keir Starmer is a you know what. Well, we're over the time, so I want to take a short comedy moment, guys. This was quite comical, but we'll a short comedy break, and then we'll be back in just a jiffy with more serious stuff, especially about Brexit and whether there are Brexiteers Nazis. So enjoy this first.
Sorry, excuse my manners, but what the fuck is this bullshit? US ranks...
Hey.
Sorry, excuse my manners, but what the fuck is this bullshit? US ranks first in swearing. My fucking arse they do. This title clearly belongs to the Irish. I demand a fucking recount. Americans are absolute amateur swearers. It's child's play what you're doing over there. You can't even indulge in a little bit of the C word without getting upset with yourself. We throw around cunt like it's a fucking comma. Meanwhile, in America, that frickin' sucks, man, oh man. If I get upset with somebody, I'm calling them a cunt, I'm calling everybody in their family a cunt, I'm bringing their cousins into it for no reason. Look how far down Ireland is. This is a fucking disgrace. We're behind Malaysia and Singapore, some of the gentlest spirits on the planet. Americans say dang and heck and fucking doodad. Try be saying that to me granny to cheer her up. I know New Yorkers say motherfucker a lot, but sure, if anything, that's a compliment. Oh, and cocksucker. Sure, that's only a bit of light homoeroticism. That's not fucking swearing. Follow me, I'm delicious.
It is somewhat true. It is somewhat true. Although it tends to be, the more religious a country is, the more creative they are with their swearing. Spain and Italy are good examples of that. This strike gang could live in Chernobyl for a few weeks and come back more normal. Oh my goodness, thanks so much, Brad. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on. Attorney General apologizes for comparing Tories and Reform to Nazis. Okay, so Badenoch and Farage seize on Richard Hemner's clumsy remark in speech made in defense of international law. So the Attorney General has apologized for a clumsy remark that compared Conservative and Reform calls to disregard international treaties and quit the European Convention on Human Rights with the early days of Nazi Germany. In a speech on Thursday, Richard Hermer defended the government's commitment to abide by international law and likened those who ignored it to the German jurists in the 1930s, such as Carl Schmitt. His words were criticised by Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. The Conservative leader accused Lord Hemner of starting from a position of self-loathing, where Britain is always wrong and everyone else is right. That's a strange position to take. Our sovereignty has been eroded by out-of-date treaties and courts acting outside their jurisdiction, Badenoch posted on X. Pointing this out does not make anyone a Nazi. Labour have embarrassed themselves again with this comparison. He didn't actually use the word Nazi. He just said, if you want to take away people's rights, okay, then you're a bit like a Nazi. You're like the people in Germany in the 1930s. That just demonetized you. But it's like comparing the Tories and Reform. Like, is it right to compare the Tories and Reform to Nazis? No, it's not right. But if you're a Tory or a member of Reform and you want to take away people's rights, then what else do we call you? Fascist? Do they not like the uniforms? Do they not like the armbands? If they don't like the armbands and uniforms, okay, let's take a different approach. Let's call them fascists then. The eugenics thing, yes. Does anyone actually believe that that shit will hit the fan? Bit hard. What was the name of the things that were popular and you struck them at the end of your pens or pencils? She reminds me of one of them. More people should compare Reform to the Nazis, as a lot of them are. Like, look at some of the comments that have had members of Reform kicked out or councillors suspended. Because of one guy was literally talking about how he believed Hitler did nothing wrong. That guy. There was a guy in Reform who said that. I think he was later kicked out, or there were calls for him to be removed. But I'm not talking so much about the paraphernalia. I'm not talking so much about some of these comments. I'm talking about the idea that you want to strip the Tories. The Tory leader is talking about stripping people of their protections, of their human rights. So if you don't like the term Nazi, then let's go with fascist, because that's what fascists do. They deny people human rights. Farage wants to do that by leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, and a significant number of Tories want to do that. So the Attorney General was not wrong. I'll defend the Attorney General. He was correct. Once again, he didn't say the word Nazi, but the connection is correct. Excuse me. The last thing Hitler heard was the national anthem of the USSR. That'll wind them up. Contrary to popular belief, God is in my kitchen. Really? That's good. Anyway, let's move on. Yes.
Basically, he claimed to have found £225 billion down the back of the Treasury sofa. Good luck with that.
Now, I mean, before we get into this is about the economics of Nigel Farage's policies. I'm actually in two minds about this, because I think most people who will vote for Nigel Farage will not care about his policies. And I think the approach to... let me be very clear. I think it's very important that we point out that his policies are complete tripe. That he doesn't have any real economic policies. There are some that may make sense, but they're limited in a limited and specific way, in the sense that he's talking about a policy where people will not pay income tax until they earn £20,000 a year. That's a great idea. That's a benefit for young people, especially young people who are starting out in their career. That's a good thing. But how are you going to pay for that? Because if this was a socialist policy, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce taxes for young people when they start work, but we're also going to have a strong welfare state, and we're going to reinforce the NHS and make sure it has everything it needs. That's a different thing. But Farage doesn't want to do that. He wants to have an insurance type healthcare system. Farage keeps saying, yeah, we're going to have it free at the point of use. But how are you going to pay for that? Like, what you're going to do is what? Give people coupons to go to the doctor or go to the hospital? And how's that going to be paid for? So Farage might say what we're going to do is it's going to be free, but free in what way? How is it going to be covered? So what Farage is talking about and Reform are talking about is cuts. We want to cut DEI. We want to cut net zero. We want to cut this. We want to cut that. But the cuts that they're talking about are not going to equate to the amount of money that they're going to lose out when it comes to tax. So something doesn't add up. It's important that this is all called out and this is challenged. But unfortunately, I'm afraid it's not going to make much difference, because people are going to vote for reform for two reasons. One is because they're not happy with the government, and the second is because they like Nigel Farage. Peter, thank you so much for that super chat. If I was a Nazi, I would be offended by the fact that I was compared to Reform and the Tories. Is it the dress sense? Maybe it's the dress sense. Thanks much, Peter.
Gave a press conference on Tuesday dominating the news agenda in a week when Westminster is on recess. The vibe was very much we mean business. On stage behind the Reform leader were representatives of some of the 10 councils that Reform won in the local elections, the mayoralties that they won, and also some of Reform's MPs. The tagline was Vote Reform, Get Reform, a message that whereas in the past you might have voted Reform as a protest vote and got a Labour or a Conservative candidate, the local elections show that now if you vote Reform, there's a very good chance that the winner may in fact be from Reform. The venue was telling. It was held at the Liberal Club. Farage kicked off his speech by saying that what Reform are achieving is the biggest.
So Farage went to London to deliver a speech about how it's a party of the people.
Upheaval in British politics since the death of the Liberal Party and the emergence of Labour and the Conservatives as the two parties in British politics. Farage said that the first step in the Reform revolution was him returning to frontline politics and winning enough MPs to form a beachhead in Parliament. As a reminder, Reform won 5 MPs in the July general election. It has since lost one of them with the suspension/defection of Rupert Lowe, but it gained another in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election when Sarah Pochin won by 6 votes. Step 2 was the local elections that we saw in May, where Reform had to prove that the polling leads that have seen them overtake first...
No, most people are in London, to be frank. Yeah, no, I agree. But Farage tries to present himself as the opposite of the metropolitan liberal elite. So why isn't he holding a conference in the north of England? He does hold conferences in the north of England. But why did he do it in London? Because, well, he knows where the power is. It's not about... It's all for show at the end of the day.
Conservatives and now Labour could translate into actual results in an election. And they did. Reform now control 10 councils and £10 billion worth of combined council budgets. They've proved they can win, now they have to prove that they can govern. And from watching Farage's press conference up close...
No. I disagree with it. Gary, thanks so much for that. The Nazis had the SS, Reform has the BS. MZ, thank you so much for those memberships. Very kind of you. So each member, you will have access to Discord, and you will also have access to videos before they go live. So that's to Yvonne, Howard, Haya, Error, Ertaco, and QA Library. Thank you so much for those. Very kind of you. No, I was saying about the... Reform don't actually have to show that they can govern because they're in opposition. Starmer didn't have to say that he would be able to govern when he was in opposition. He just had to say, I'm not the incumbent. I think this is something that's really important, and unfortunately, it's me being on the outside. Maybe because I'm not in the Westminster bubble or something like that. But I don't see it as Farage having to demonstrate that he's able to run the country to get into power. No. All he has to do is watch the other person fall, collapse and fail. All he has to do is watch Starmer fall apart or the Labour government fall apart. That's what Labour did. Labour were not saying, we're going to do all these wonderful things. They just let the Tories collapse and they won a majority. As we kept saying, people were not voting for Labour because they agreed with Keir Starmer. They said, oh, he's so wonderful. He's so charismatic. And his policies are so wonderful. No, what did Starmer win on? We're not the Tories. He of course said, we are change. What did that mean? It didn't matter. It didn't matter. People were so sick of the Tories, they were willing to vote for the next best thing in their eyes, which was the Labour Party. Now, many people who follow politics were saying, no, that was a bad idea. You should have voted for the Greens, or you should have voted Liberal Democrats, you voted the SNP, or voted for Plaid, or whatever. But at the end of the day, most people don't follow politics, and they were like, okay, I'm not happy with the Tories. Who's the other option? It's the Labour Party. So that's what they did. It was not because of Keir Starmer, because of his charisma or anything like that. It was not because of the policies. It was because we are not the Conservatives. And that worked. And that's all Nigel Farage has to do at the next election. He doesn't have to really present any policies. He has to hope that the government collapse, that they are a shambles by 2028-29. And if they're able to do that, if that works for them, because I keep saying, if people are happy with the government, they're not going to vote for another party. It's not that there's no way for Farage to get into power. He, of course, will try to work with the Tories, try to pressure them, get them to stand aside to help reform. But it really does come down to whether people are happy with the incumbent. And if they're not, then there's not much Labour can do. If they are, then Farage is broken. Because why would you vote for another party if you're happy with the situation? And it's going to take a lot of work. We're very early on, of course, in this cycle, but Labour really need to start delivering. And they need to convince the public that their lives are getting better, and it's because of the Labour government. People voted for Tony Blair, was in 2005. They disagreed with his foreign policy, but they looked around and said, well, things are better than they were when the Tories were in charge. That's why he won a second election. I don't know if that's going to happen with Starmer. I don't think Starmer will be in charge by then. It could be Angela Rayner. But Angela Rayner could set a vision in place. Said, this is our vision for the future. This is what we want to achieve. That's what they need to do. And they need to constantly work towards that. They need to say, this is our vision, and everything we do is complementing the vision or working towards that vision. Because if they don't, then people will look elsewhere. And if we've seen with the United States, people are willing to vote for a convicted felon, a sex pest, as opposed to the incumbent. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat. Reform would mean utter destruction of the economy. Interest rates would go through the roof, and we would have hyperinflation and mass unemployment. The UK would fall into severe economic depression, because I think there's a real risk of heading towards that even before Farage gets into power, because what we're hearing is an anti-immigration line. Immigration is coming down. That's a wonderful thing. No, if you want to grow your economy, you need workers. And so many sectors don't have workers. And we have this consensus, unfortunately, in Parliament. And when I mean consensus, I mean the two main parties, and maybe Reform as well, of course. The other parties, not so much. But the main block of politicians is anti-immigration. Immigration is a problem. It needs to come down. But immigration coming down means more stress for the NHS, more stress on social care, businesses not being able to expand. And remember, if a business is able to access the workers it needs, it's more likely to expand, which will increase demand in the economy, which will help the government. More people working, more people paying tax. More profits, more taxes. So it makes sense for businesses to expand, but they're not going to expand if they have this wall in front of them, which is, we don't want immigration. We're not going to allow you to access the workers you need. I'd really hope that when the Tories had gone down this road of we're stopping people from bringing their dependents with them, I'd really hope that Labour would U-turn on that or would undo that policy. But instead they voted for it, and they're implementing it, because what it's doing is it's bringing down immigration. So they can say, oh, look, we have succeeded. Immigration is coming down. But to hell with the consequences of that. Thanks once again, Ivan. Yeah, but there is a real risk that things will get bad before Farage gets in. And remember, people will vote for change. They will vote against the incumbent. So if things are going badly, even if they think it could get worse with Farage, they'll vote for Farage. They'll vote for reform. This is why it's so important. It's fundamentally important that Labour succeed. And just reading some of your comments as well. He's a delicious. It wouldn't be that good, Ivan. Somebody said, thanks. Would it be that bad? Yes. I don't know if I would agree with Ivan with all the things that he said here, because I don't know whether there would be hyperinflation. I'm not saying I disagree with the main idea here. I agree 100% with the idea. Maybe there's some specific things. When it comes to unemployment, I think we're going to see mass unemployment if we don't have something, a plan B when it comes to AI. We could see hyperinflation if we don't, if the wrong people are in charge of running the economy. Inflation tends to be an external thing, though. Got my Irish citizenship in the last week. Sorry, Max. Urban, well done. Congratulations. You're officially a paddy like myself. Well done on that. Great to hear it. Peter, thank you so much for that super chat. Blair had the personality, Brown knew the economics. Yes. There were. I know Gordon Brown is not that popular in Scotland, but when it came to the economy, for most things, I think he did a pretty good job. But yeah, you're right that Blair had the personality. I completely disagree with the war in Iraq, and I actually marched in Dublin back in 2003 against it. But when it came to domestic policy, it seems at least on the surface that he was doing a good job, and most people were convinced that things could only get better. One of my favorite songs. Farage and his terrible relations. He should really step down. Remember the whole thing about, well, Farage should be made ambassador to the United States. Hasn't done. He couldn't even get on the phone to Donald and say, "Hey, please drop the tariffs for my benefit." No. Gordon Brown. Anyway, guys, let's move on. I don't know whether this will be a good thing for. I disagree with this idea that Nigel Farage. Sorry, we'll get to Bernie in just a moment. I disagree with this idea that Farage's policies will be scrutinised, and that if they are scrutinised and properly demonstrated as being an absolute joke, that this will stop him from getting in. No, because while we on the stream, people in chat, people who follow politics are concerned about policies, most people aren't. Anyway, going from something terrible like Nigel Farage to something much better.
The top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 95%. We should not have billionaires. We can literally abolish poverty right now if we have the courage to make sure that this new technology...
Exactly. I love this guy. I'm a huge Bernie fan. There is enough money to end poverty. We could end... It's a political decision not to end poverty. It's a political decision not to end homelessness. It's not that we don't have the money. We have the money. Just we don't want to spend the money. How did they end homelessness in Finland or in Norway? I think it was Finland, actually. Norway or Finland, in one of the Scandinavian countries. Apologies to people in Finland and Norway, if I'm getting either of your countries wrong. But how did they end it? By giving people homes. By building people homes. That's how they... No, it can't be that simple. Yes, it was that simple. How do you end poverty? By giving people money, a UBI or better benefits. That's how you end poverty. There's no justification. I'll get back to Bernie. Don't worry. I don't want to take time away from Bernie. But there's no justification for food banks. Food banks didn't exist in the past. Now there are more food banks than there are McDonald's. Someone told me recently there are more churches than there are homeless people. How is that possible? So if we want to end homelessness, if we do want to end poverty, we can do it. Money is no option. And remember, the government can print money if necessary, but we're not talking about trillions of dollars or trillions of pounds. We're talking about a very small amount of money. But it's a political decision not to spend the money on this because, well, we know homeless people can't vote. Or if they are able to vote eventually, they're not voting in numbers that would make any difference. So politicians don't care about them. It's exactly the same when it comes to Northern Ireland. The Tories or Labour don't give a shit about Northern Ireland. They will pay lip service, but at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about Northern Ireland. Why don't they give a shit about Northern Ireland? Because they don't have any MPs there. And it's unfortunately, it's pretty much the same when it comes to the poor and the homeless. They don't have any political influence. They have no political power. They have nobody representing them in Parliament. They have organisations to represent them, but they have no political power. And until you have political power, or someone on your side who has political power, you're freaked. All the homeless got housing when the lockdowns happened. Well said, Alistair. If they did it then, why can't they do it now? Well, 100% agreement, yes. When is the UBI stream happening, Max? I'm told.
Technology. The creation of wealth goes to all people, not just the people on top.
So mechanisms for achieving that then, I mean, presumably we're talking about redistributive taxation. Is that a measure that you'd support?
Yes, absolutely.
Wealth taxes?
Well, more than that, I think we should be saying right now, in a world in which globally the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 95%, and in nation after nation you're seeing more and more income and wealth inequality, I would say that in the United States, we should not have billionaires. The idea that somebody now has $400 billion, when we have people sleeping out on the streets, when people can't afford healthcare, can't afford childcare, that is insane. So we need to democratize.
Yeah, there is a reason why people become billionaires, because the system is corrupt. You can become a millionaire if you're really lucky. You're successful. You make the right investments, be them property or land or whatever, or you inherit a certain amount of money. But to become a billionaire is a different story whatsoever. To become a billionaire, you need a corrupt system. You need people at the bottom working, relying on benefits because they're not being paid enough. You need a system where people are afraid to call in sick, or they have to piss in bottles because they're afraid that if they don't get back to their workstation in time, they could be sacked. That's the type of system that's needed to ensure someone becomes a billionaire. And a huge amount of government contracts as well when it comes into the case of Elon Musk. I almost missed your super chat. Ivan, once again, thank you so much, Ivan. The Tories soon cared about Northern Ireland after the 2017 election. Yes, I stand corrected. Well said. Yes, when it became, we need the DUP. Let's give the DUP £1 billion. What happened to that £1 billion? Does anyone know? It disappeared down Eileen Foster's sofa. And then as soon as 2019 rolled around, it was like, who are the DUP again? We don't remember any DUP. Anyway, back to Bernie.
Advertise our society, get people involved, and create an economy that works for all of us, not just the folks on Wall Street or the new high-tech billionaires.
My God, this man is terrible. Imagine an economy that works for everyone. Can you imagine a system where there is no poverty? There's no homelessness. This is terrible. Okay. And look, he's a democratic socialist. He's not a communist, as people on the right try to describe Bernie Sanders as. He's somebody who said, look, why do we have a system that's broken? Why do we have homelessness when we also have people who have more money they could ever spend if they lived for 1 million years or something like that? So it doesn't make any sense to have a system. It's not good for society. If we have more people better off, it's actually better for the richest in society as well, because you have more consumers. If you have more poverty, you have fewer people buying stuff. So it's actually better for the rich, not the billionaires, because it doesn't really make any difference to them, a million here, 1 million there. But for rich people, it actually benefits them if you have more people in prosperity. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to cover just one final story before we go. This is... I had to cover this before we finish tonight because this is just so ridiculous. So as I said at the beginning, there is Batman. Remember Batman, Bruce Wayne? You know, what was it? What's the story of Bruce Wayne? When he grew up, his parents were killed, shot by a criminal in front of him, and then he decided, I'm going to fight crime because it's the right thing to do. Well, Britain has its own Bruce Wayne in the name of Robert Jenrick.
Do you think it's all right not to pay? Seriously, why do you go back through the barrier and pay? Do you want to go back and pay like everybody else? Do you think it's all right not to pay? Should we go over here to these guys here? Excuse me, gents. Hello. You're on camera, mate. You're bang to rights. Just step to the side. All right, thanks very much, guys. It's the same with bike theft, phone theft, tool theft, shoplifting, drugs in town centres, weird Turkish barber shops. It's all chipping away at society. The state needs to reassert itself and go after lawbreakers.
Well, I spoke to Robert Jenrick about that video a little earlier.
Did you speak to him about the £45 million he helped a Tory donor avoid paying in tax?
Well, look, I think politicians make speeches, they ask questions, and that is absolutely part of the job. But sometimes you do have to get out of Westminster, listen to people, and where you see things that are wrong, try to shame the authorities into taking action. And I felt angry that law-abiding people were paying for their fares, not just on the London Underground, but on transport across the country. And they probably felt foolish, silly.
Jenrick, like Darren Grimes, is in Newark. Thanks, Brad. And well said, yes.
That other people were flagrantly breaching the rules, not paying. That's costing everyone money because everyone is having to pay higher fares.
I'm actually of the idea that we should have free public transport. Would Robert Jenrick support the idea of free public transport, paid through by taxes? Can you imagine in a society, free public transport? Wouldn't that be wonderful? And so many people would benefit from that because many people struggle to pay the cost of transportation. So free public transportation would get more people out of their cars, more people into towns and villages. People would... there's an actual initiative in China. I think it's called the Silver Train, which is very interesting. So many things coming from China which are really interesting. But it's called the Silver Line or Silver Train, where they take elderly people. Elderly people in China generally have good amount of savings, and they want them to spend money. So what they do is they give them free transportation to villages and towns outside the main cities. So they can go on the train, a luxurious train, and they can travel there for free to these towns and villages where they spend money. Isn't that a wonderful thing? But Robert Jenrick would be, I imagine, against the idea of free public transport, because then there'd be no need for people to not pay, to skip, to jump over the barriers, whatever. Throwback Max, DUP, despots, uniting provinces. Thanks, Gareth. The DUP. Those were the days, wasn't it?
As a result, and it's time for the authorities to step up. And here in London, frankly, it's for Sadiq Khan to do something. He's a do-nothing mayor. He's been in office for years. This problem seems to be getting worse. I want to see him take action.
Isn't part of the problem with lawlessness the fact that the Tories been in power for such a long time, in charge of crime in the Home Office that you were in?
Well, Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London and has been. He's in his third term now. What is he doing? Why isn't he taking action? The number of people being prosecuted for fare dodging in London has fallen dramatically.
Okay, but when you were in charge, you didn't hire enough police officers. Like, if somebody's arrested and then they're like, okay, the transport police arrest this person, or somebody in the train station grabs this person and say, okay, well, let's call a police officer. So, yeah, but the police officer isn't going to be here until next week because we don't have enough police officers. Why don't we have enough police officers? Because the Tories shut down many police stations and they didn't hire enough police officers. So you don't get to say, well, we need to put people in prison or we need to have these people arrested if you are part of the frigging problem. But unfortunately, there was no point raised about him helping somebody not pay their frigging taxes. Helping a Tory donor avoid paying £45 million in taxes. Now, how many people would have to be stopped from not paying their train fare to arrive at £45 million? I would love to know. We don't have any figures, unfortunately. The Tories were in charge for 14 years and cut police and underfunded the courts, Max. Yes. Well said, Alistair. They didn't hire enough police officers. They underfunded the what was happening last year? Remember, before the elections, barristers were going on strike. Barristers. Because they were saying this justice system is falling apart. Because the Tories didn't invest enough in it. Bring back the old style turnstiles. Because they're more mechanical and they're more likely to break down. But once again, I support the idea of free public transport. Then we don't have any worries about people not paying their fares or people... and it's better for a society. We can afford that. You know, it's a cost, it's a tax. But wouldn't it make more sense, you know, claw back some money from PPE contracts to pay for it? You know, the friends of the Tory party, they made a lot of money. Maybe some of them, you know, should be metaphorically, you know, shook from upside down and some of the money may fall out. I'm not saying to do it literally. It's annoying how much of the media gives time to Farage. Yes, and this is my biggest... This channel is almost becoming an anti-Farage channel because I'm so tired of Farage not just being given a massive platform, a disproportionate platform, but also an unchallenged one. Because there are videos online, I've covered it in the past, there are videos online of Farage actually being challenged and he falls apart. He's not that clever. He relies on the media being too afraid to challenge him. Because as soon as he is challenged, he has nothing to say. He starts ranting and raving about something else. And that's what needs to happen. Journalists need to grow a pair and they need to challenge Farage. Because if they don't, then he's going to march into number 10. He's going to be in government. And he's going to be calling the shots. And he's going to do pretty terrible things. We can see what's happening in the United States, where they're attempting to close down universities. They've recently banned foreigners. Well, they said if you want to be a foreign student, you need to hand over your social media account, and we're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And if there are things we don't like, we're going to block your visa. There are researchers in the US who are planning to leave the United States at the moment because they're saying we can't stay here. It's not safe. We can't live in a society where we're not able to criticize the government. It's not just about criticizing Donald Trump. It's about criticizing his policies. The First Amendment is gone. It's gone. Which is so ironic because as I said before in the past, how I remember, maybe some of you aren't old enough to remember this, but I remember back in 2007 when Barack Obama was running for president. And one of the arguments was, if Obama becomes president, he's going to take your guns. This was a thing, vote Republican, keep your guns. And why do you need guns? Well, in case the government, becomes authoritarian, to fight against a dictatorship. And if Barack Obama gets in, it'll be a dictatorship. So you need to vote Republican. Barack Obama was there twice, two presidencies. Did he take people's guns? No. Then when Hillary Clinton was running, Hillary Clinton's going to take your guns. She's going to run the country like a dictator. You need to have your guns in order to fight a dictatorship. And now that Donald Trump's in charge, suspending habeas corpus, sending people to a gulag without due process, suspending the First Amendment. Where are all these gun people? I'm not saying that they should do something, but they're extremely silent because they didn't really care. It was not about guns. It was not about the First Amendment. It was not about the Constitution. It was, we don't like the other guy. And on that note, we'll say goodnight. Before we finish, we have of course, our one for the road. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much for your super chats. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job, as always, keeping it on the straight and narrow. But before we go, we have our final video. Hope you enjoyed it. This is somewhat, it's our, let me just reduce the volume a little bit. It's broken news, but it's quite apt for the moment.
Welcome to Broken News. People in a quiet British village have reacted with shock today after a lovely 39-year-old man was arrested for brutally killing his entire family. Gerald Limpet-Jones was described as a nice, kind gentleman who wouldn't hurt a fly and the sort of person you'd love to give a hug to and maybe sniff his neck. Our reporter has more.
A man who kept himself to himself, a perfect, well-toned neighbour who loved small animals, and the sort of down-to-earth fella you'd want for a son. Words used to describe Mr. Limpet Jones, who lived just behind me here in the sleepy village of Swansfield Borough under Mipsey. The humble and well-respected hedge fund manager, who was today arrested for brutally bludgeoning to death his wife, Tracy, or Rachel or something, as well as some other women, had never done anything like this before. Friends and neighbours have paid tribute to Mr. Limpet Jones, who's expected to face life in jail. They say they'll miss him, calling him a caring soul who gives a lot to charity and helps out at the local church. A sad loss. Back to you.
A lovely story, thank you. Well, a fundraiser has been set up to cover all legal fees, and there is to be a vigil tonight for Mr. Limpet Jones. Best of luck to him. That's all from Broken News.
Oh my goodness. Oh, before we finish, we have a super chat from Peter once again. Take their guns. They don't know how tanks work. Yes. It's like, I think it was a Jim Jeffries, I think it was the comedian, was like, yeah, but they have drones. The government, you can fight the government, but they have drones. So guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.